feel absolutely fortunate and blessed that I'm working with some incredibly creative and cutting-edge people.
The innovations in this show, that there's hundreds.
One of the things Kylie's always really wanted to do was a heart-shaped stage.
The lift is all done from hydraulics, the rotate's all done from hydraulics.
The apparatus that the boys are using for Cupid Boy is a completely new sort of hybrid idea.
The initial ideas were sitting in a room discussing how we could turn a heart shape into runways that move into the middle of the arena, water and how it relates to the full overall design.
The lights that light the fountains have been specially developed for the show.
And even what we're doing in All the Lovers, it's aerial fabric, but I apply it in a certain way and it gives it a different quality.
There are racks and racks of computers sat under the stage that control all of this.
And we've done some water effects previously, but nothing's ever been done so choreographed, and nothing's ever been quite as elegant as what we're presenting here.
This is the first time water features like this have been taken on the road. That was a big challenge, how to load out, load in, make this a traveling show.
And we are pumping roughly 40,000 gallons of water into the tanks below the stage, and so it's how do you do that in such a way where you can move it every single day?
But if you take the water away, we still have a centre lift that all the engineers told us wasn't possible.
The Whirlybird's a pretty big technological monster.
It's all cut aluminium, so we haven't faked it in any way. It's a real cut Perspex window, and we backlight it with 108 LEDs. We've got the real burlesque feel of the floor show, but we've managed to tilt it up so the entire arena can see.
It's a really poignant part of the show. Kylie is amazing. Her heart is in it. She's so passionate about this. And to have her be as excited about this makes it really easy for us to be excited about this because it's her dream and her vision.
Quality and precision in a performance. It's hard to quantify that because that's the nature of a live show.
The importance of quality and precision in what we do in my field for the aerialists and for choreography are critical. They affect every single thing.
Quality and precision is incredibly important in what I do. I got this treatment from William and it was full of visual references.
Description, imagery for each number.
Incredibly descriptive sentences and stuff that was beautifully laid out for me to start to create the show in my head.
There's the seed and the vision, and everyone in their own different department takes that and kind of runs with it.
When I get the music, I got to figure out how I'm going to take the idea and how I'm going to plug it into the music and how I'm going to make the lyrics visually live. Because I start out in the dance studio and I start out with picture references and I start out by being inspired by as many things as I can. That turns into movement. And then we go into a set where in our rehearsal room we have a mock stage, which is just a very simple version so they can understand where the stairs are and how we can make the choreography work within the world. Then we get costumes. Then we go onto the stage and we get to see how all of these things come together.
Most of the aerialists are very high-level dancers. They are continuously drilled. A dancer is constantly drilled on fine precision. So when a performer can take that into the air, it's incredible bonus.
I worked very closely with Dre on this tour, and we got to integrate what happened on land with what was happening up in the air. In All the Lovers, I got to work with this unbelievably dynamic piece of machinery called the cake lift, and the aerials are a huge part of this. So when I was doing it, I wanted everything I did on the cake with the dancers to be supportive of the aerialist and Kylie, which was at the top of the cake.
If they don't push off at the moment that the motor takes them up in the air, if they're trying to generate a spin, there will be no spin.
As the aerialists had to come out of the water, my dancers had to spin them on the ground. So there was things that we had to collaborate on to make sure that the whole picture worked.
The artist, the performer, and the technical is perfectly married, then you get this experience where you're like, oh!
You have a template of what is supposed to happen each night and when things should go up and down and light on and light off and all of that. But I think amongst that precision is the breath and the life in the show, and that's what you can't predict. It's different every night. It's really important for all of us involved in the show that we are ecologically minded.
For the design of the stage, one of the things that we were very conscious of is reusability.
Everything we can take from stock, we do.
The way it's been built is with a series of essentially kind of connects where you can put them all together in many different ways.
The stage is modular, it's broken down in the end, and that will again be recycled, go off and have another life.
There's a lot of parts and pieces which can be reused or recycled, the plastics and aluminum.
It's very specific to this show as it is right now, but when you take it all apart, it's not specific at all.
The two lifts that are each side of the rose window are standard take lifts which you just rent, and they're just customized in height and a different surface is put on the top.
The way that we manufacture things, we look to make the entire show somewhat recyclable in the sense that everything is plug and play, and as the gear comes back, you can take it apart and use it for other things so that you're not constantly making the same equipment for artists.
It's a show with water, a lot of water, so that is recycled as often as possible. The actual flooring of the stage is made of recycled tyres, which is not only ecologically brilliant, but it's fantastic for me to be on.
It's a surface that we use a lot. It's very good on people's knees, but it's exceptionally good for a really wet surface where you have dancers.
It's the best stage I've ever stood on.
And we were able to use a rubber surface that's used in a lot of gymnasiums and athletic surfaces.
It feels very solid, secure, soft, and the fact that the stage locks together, I think I really feel it, and that enhances the performance. The screens and the lighting are there to create the ambience and create the world that we want people to come to. The previous tour we used full screens which are LED, which is very common now. So in a way we've gone a step backwards to use projection to give almost a more filmic quality to the visuals.
This stage, like every stage that is designed by us for the rock and roll business, has to be taken apart in one night and put back together the next day.
The lighting rig has been designed to help speed the load-ins and the load-outs.
So we try and build a system that requires no tools and no loose fasteners in order to assemble it.
It's based around a new truss that the moving lights live in. So every day they just need to connect it together and fly it out. You don't need to hang the lights each day.
It's mostly designed to go together quickly, and it's also really designed to go global.
It's like it has to breathe with the show. It has to go up exactly the same way every time if you're lowering human beings into small pools of water.
Performers are coming up out of the stage, performers are coming down from the grid.
Every cue for the set to move, every cue for an aerialist to go up in the air, to come down, for apparatus to be offloaded, those are all a part of the same system.
We have about 300 axes of movement just in the stage itself. On other shows that I've worked on, we've had maybe 12 to 16 as the maximum number of movements.
There's drive racks underneath the stage, which are all plugged into the machines themselves.
We use the time code, which is coming from the sound system. The sound guys put it out, lighting's off of that. The computer control system for all the automation is part of that.
Navigator is the software that we use to control all the mechanical devices.
Most of the shows that I've done, the arena shows in the past, have been separate elements with separate brains, if you will. It's a much better system to have them all together.
It's the humanity in the show that makes the show spectacular. There's a lot of talk about the innovation and technology and all of that's really important, but without people who invent that and who make it work every night, it would be soulless. The name Aphrodite gave us a great starting point. Mythological imagery combined with a pop sensibility.
When I first heard the idea for Aphrodite and the tour and the concept, I thought it was perfect.
Taking the idea of a goddess and representing that on stage.
This whole Aphrodite experience is about water and the birth of Aphrodite, and normally with our openings they're very kind of big and building, and this is quite a low-key thing because we wanted people to kind of come into the world of it.
All of the elements of the stage refer to that goddess, and there's the temple, There's this open, vast space behind with projections that allows us to change the world behind.
The idea for me is to try and take every piece and make it its own world within the world that is this tour.
It's a sort of spectacle, and we want people to kind of really feel as if they're a part of it and get wrapped up in the whole story of the show.
For one, it's called Les Folies, and it pays tribute to the old Folies Bergère and the old Showgirl and Busby Berkeley style films and classical ways of doing dance and music.
We have a version of her song Slow that was built around this piece of scenery called the tilt-a-wheel, which kind of comes up and it gives you that Bob Fosse effect, and we wanted to kind of make a sort of more jazz-orientated burlesque version of Slow.
It's that mixed with this Grecian goddess, Kylie.
The props and everything in the show gives her the ability to become that goddess and elevates her again physically as well as visually within color and form.
I'm particularly fond of Pegasus, my golden Pegasus.
This very masculine, very strong figure of a horse. It's all about motion and static motion and physical motion. We have silks behind her that are flowing in the wind.
Water is a really important theme for the show because Aphrodite was born from the sea, so we wanted to illustrate that in the show.
We tried to have as many water themes in there as possible, but without actually having tons of water sound effects. So the opening of the show, for instance, the first minute of that is a classical piece of music called Aquarium I did a kind of a version of. We also, on a night like this, there's a whole minute and a half kind of orchestral piece at the beginning which I wrote for synchronized swimmers that we have on the video screens.
When all the water comes in, a lot of that was based on Esther Williams, who was a brilliant and incredibly distinguished synchronized swimmer and performer and extraordinaire. So a lot of the stuff that Kylie does and the way she holds her positions and the way that she orchestrates the water was inspired by Esther.
So it is about creating this kind of underwater world for her to kind of live in, and it crosses that boundary between that and Les Folies.
A wonderful culmination of all these different, very different elements, and mixing them together gives you the Aphrodite Les Folies tour.